We live in an age of unprecedented chaos. The 21st century has delivered to humanity a relentless torrent of disruption, political upheaval, economic uncertainty, social fragmentation, technological acceleration, and the constant low-grade anxiety of a world that moves faster than any human nervous system was designed to process. Every morning, millions of people wake up to a flood of notifications, crises, and competing demands that conspire to rob them of their most precious possession, their peace of mind. And yet, scattered across history, across centuries and civilizations, there have always been individuals who remained unshaken, warriors who walked calmly into battle, leaders who governed empires with graceful detachment, thinkers who endured imprisonment, exile, and poverty with a stillness that bewildered their tormentors. Ordinary men and women who, in the face of devastating loss, somehow found within themselves a reservoir of strength that the chaos of the world could not drain. What was their secret? Not power, not wealth, not privilege, not some rare genetic gift unavailable to the rest of us. Their secret was a philosophy, a rigorous, practical, battle-tested philosophy developed over centuries in the ancient world and refined through the lives of some of history's most remarkable individuals. That philosophy is Stoicism. This is not a book about passive resignation. Stoicism is not the art of feeling nothing, of becoming cold, robotic, emotionally dead. It is not a manual for suppressing human experience or pretending that life's difficulties do not hurt. Stoicism is, in fact, the opposite of all those things. It is the art of feeling everything fully, the grief, the joy, the fear, the love, while refusing to be controlled by any of it. It is the discipline of choosing, in every moment, to respond rather than react, to act from reason rather than impulse, to build your identity not on the shifting sands of circumstance, but on the bedrock of character. This guide is written for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever chaos currently surrounds you. It is written for the entrepreneur whose business is failing, for the parent watching a child suffer, for the professional betrayed by colleagues, for the young person paralyzed by the overwhelming complexity of modern existence, for anyone who has ever looked at the world and thought, there must be a better way to navigate this. There is. 2,000 years ago, a group of extraordinary human beings discovered it. This is their wisdom, made alive, made practical, made yours. In any era of history, one can make the case that the times are uniquely difficult. The ancient Greeks faced the collapse of city-states and the brutal machinery of Macedonian conquest. The Romans of the late Republic watched their civilization tear itself apart in civil war. Medieval peoples endured plagues that killed half the known world. And yet the argument can be made, and should be made, that the specific nature of modern chaos presents challenges that previous ages did not face, not because our difficulties are necessarily greater in magnitude, but because they are uniquely designed to destabilize the human psyche in ways that older forms of suffering were not. Consider, our ancestors, when faced with hardship, were generally dealing with one crisis at a time: a drought, an invasion, a death in the family. These were devastating, but they were comprehensible. They had a face, they had a timeline. The modern human, by contrast, is subjected simultaneously to a global news cycle, designed by sophisticated algorithms to maximize anxiety, a social media environment engineered to generate constant comparison and inadequacy, an economic system of unprecedented complexity whose fluctuations can shatter livelihoods overnight, and a political landscape so polarized and tribal that simply holding an opinion has become a source of existential threat. The result is a civilization-wide crisis of mental health on a scale history has never seen. Anxiety disorders are now the most common mental illness in the developed world. Rates of depression have tripled in the last 2 decades. Loneliness, despite being more digitally connected than any humans who have ever lived, has been declared an epidemic by the medical establishment of multiple nations. Suicide rates among young people are at historic highs. We are, as a civilization, coming apart, and yet, Stoicism is experiencing a renaissance. In boardrooms and barracks, in university philosophy departments and underground podcasts, In the notebooks of elite athletes and the journals of people recovering from devastating loss, a growing number of thoughtful individuals are returning to the insights of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. They are finding, to their surprise and relief, that wisdom written nearly 2,000 years ago speaks with startling precision to the texture of modern suffering. Why? Because the Stoics were not primarily interested in the external conditions of life. They were interested in the internal architecture of the human mind. They were interested in the mechanisms by which human beings construct meaning, manage emotion, and decide how to act. And because those mechanisms, the core software of human consciousness, have not fundamentally changed in 2,000 years, their insights remain as sharp and as actionable today as they were when Marcus Aurelius scrawled them into his private journal on the banks of the Danube. The story of Stoicism begins not in a grand temple or a royal court, but on a painted porch, the Stoa Poikile, in the marketplace of ancient Athens. Around 301 BC, a Phoenician merchant named Zeno of Citium arrived in Athens after surviving a shipwreck that cost him everything he owned. In his desperation and displacement, he wandered into a bookshop and found himself reading Xenophon's account of Socrates, the Memorabilia. So electrified was he by what he read that he asked the bookseller where he might find men like Socrates. The bookseller pointed to a passing philosopher named Crates of Thebes. Zeno followed him, and from that chance encounter, one of the most influential philosophical traditions in Western history was born. Zeno eventually founded his own school, gathering students in the painted porch, the Stoa, of the Athenian Agora. His philosophy synthesized and refined elements from Socratic, Cynic, Megarian, and Heraclitean traditions into something new, a comprehensive system of logic, physics, and ethics built around the conviction that virtue is the only true good, and that the path to human happiness lies not in the acquisition of external things, but in the cultivation of an excellent, rational character. From Zeno, the tradition passed to Cleanthes of Assos, a former boxer who worked as a water carrier by night to fund his philosophical studies by day. Cleanthes is known for his hymn to Zeus, one of the most beautiful expressions of Stoic theology in existence, a poem that articulates the Stoic vision of a universe governed by divine reason, the Logos, of which every human mind is a fragment. After Cleanthes came Chrysippus of Soli, perhaps the most brilliant systematic philosopher in Stoic history, who is credited with writing over 700 works, almost none of which survive, in which he elaborated the full logical, physical, and ethical architecture of Stoic philosophy with extraordinary precision and depth. Stoicism migrated from Greece to Rome in the 2nd century BC, where it found fertile ground in a culture already deeply committed to virtues like duty, discipline, and the subordination of individual desire to civic obligation. The Roman Stoics, particularly the three giants whose works have survived intact and who form the primary textual foundation of Stoic practice today, brought to the philosophy not only intellectual brilliance, but the weight of lived experience in an extraordinary range of human circumstances. Lucius Annaeus Seneca the Younger was born in Córdoba, Spain, and spent his adult life navigating the treacherous currents of the Roman imperial court. He served as tutor and advisor to the Emperor Nero, a relationship that proved both professionally influential and personally dangerous. Seneca accumulated enormous wealth and wielded extraordinary political power, all while writing some of the most beautiful Stoic prose in existence: the Letters to Lucilius, the moral essays on the shortness of life and on tranquility of mind, and his tragedies, in which Stoic themes of fate, endurance, and the corruption of the soul by passion play out with dramatic force. In 65 AD, Nero accused Seneca of involvement in a conspiracy and ordered him to commit suicide. Accounts of his death, conducted with serenity, philosophical discourse, and the refusal to be melodramatic, became one of the defining images of Stoic courage in the ancient world. Epictetus represents perhaps the most remarkable human story in the entire Stoic tradition. Born into slavery in Hierapolis in Phrygia, he endured brutal treatment at the hands of his master, including deliberate physical torment. Yet from this position of absolute external powerlessness, Epictetus developed the most radical and uncompromising articulation of Stoic freedom ever formulated. His central teaching, that while a master can break a slave's body, he can never touch the slave's capacity to choose how he responds to that breaking, was not abstract philosophy, but lived reality. He gained his freedom, established a school in Nicopolis in northwest Greece, and taught for decades. His words, recorded by his student Arian in the Discourses and the Enchiridion, form the most direct and practically useful expression of Stoic ethics in existence. Marcus Aurelius was, by the accident of adoption, the most powerful man on earth, emperor of Rome at the height of the empire's extent. He was also, by his own testimony, a man plagued by fatigue, self-doubt, irritability, and the constant struggle between his philosophical ideals and the grinding demands of governing an empire in perpetual military crisis. His Meditations, written as a private journal never intended for publication, are among the most intimate and affecting documents in the history of philosophy. They are not a polished treatise, but a working notebook, a man reminding himself day after day of the principles he had committed to live by, struggling to live by them, failing, recommitting. They are, in this sense, the most honest account of what it actually looks and feels like to practice Stoicism that we possess. Before we proceed further, we must address directly the most common and most damaging misconception about Stoicism: the notion that Stoicism is about suppressing emotion, that the Stoic ideal is the cold, impassive, robotic person who feels nothing. This interpretation, popularized by centuries of cultural distortion and the casual use of the word Stoic as a synonym for emotionless, is not merely incomplete, but fundamentally wrong in a way that makes it the opposite of the truth. The Stoics did not teach emotional suppression. They taught emotional transformation. They did not say, stop feeling. They said, understand what your feelings are, where they come from, whether they are based on accurate assessments of reality, and choose with the full force of your rational nature how to relate to them. The goal was not the absence of emotion. The Greek word for that was apathy, which the Stoics associated with the Cynics and considered a kind of philosophical error, but rather what they called eupatheiai, the good emotions, the emotions that arise in a well-ordered, rational, virtuous soul. The Stoics felt deeply. Marcus Aurelius grieved the loss of friends and children with evident anguish. Seneca wrote with passionate intensity about the beauty of friendship, the preciousness of time, the sharp pain of loss. Epictetus spoke of his students with unmistakable warmth and affection. What they refused to do was allow those feelings to become the masters of their choices, the architects of their actions. There is a profound difference between feeling grief and being destroyed by grief, between feeling fear and being paralyzed by fear, between feeling love and being enslaved by love. The Stoics lived fully on the human side of that distinction, cultivating their capacity for rich emotional experience while refusing to surrender their rational agency to it. Stoicism is also not fatalism, another common misunderstanding. The Stoics did not teach that effort is futile, that outcomes are predetermined, or that we should passively accept whatever happens to us. They taught the exact opposite: vigorous, wholehearted, energetic engagement with life and action, combined with the internal freedom that comes from not attaching one's happiness to the specific outcome of that action. The Stoic archer, as Cicero beautifully described it, takes aim with complete focus and skill, releases the arrow with everything she has, and then, once the arrow is in flight, accepts whatever happens without distress. It is not the outcome, but the quality of the aim and the release that she is responsible for. That combination of maximal effort and minimal attachment to results is not passivity. It is one of the most psychologically sophisticated and practically powerful orientations toward action that philosophy has ever articulated. The Stoics were not naive about the world. They did not pretend that human existence is serene, that nature is benevolent, or that chaos is an aberration that can be eliminated through sufficient intelligence, virtue, or effort. Quite the contrary, at the very heart of Stoic cosmology was a profound and unsparing acknowledgement that the universe is constituted by constant change, that impermanence is not an unfortunate feature of reality, but its most fundamental characteristic. Marcus Aurelius returns to this theme obsessively throughout the Meditations. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. Time is a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and already carried past us, and another follows and is gone. These are not laments about the world's impermanence, but clear-eyed recognitions of it, offered as foundations for right action rather than as occasions for despair. The Stoics inherited from Heraclitus, the pre-Socratic philosopher, who declared that everything flows and that one cannot step into the same river twice, a vision of reality as fundamentally dynamic. The Logos, the divine rational principle that Stoics believed permeated and organized the universe, was not a static blueprint, but an active, living fire, constantly consuming and constantly creating, shaping matter into forms and then dissolving those forms back into the primordial flux. Stars are born and die, empires rise and collapse, seasons cycle, cells divide and perish, children grow and parents age and all things pass. This is not a cause for despair, it is a cause for wisdom. If you build your sense of security on the assumption that external things will remain stable, your health, your relationships, your financial position, your reputation, the political order, the social structures you depend on, you are building on sand. The question is not whether those things will change, but only when and how dramatically. The Stoic insight is that this reality, honestly confronted rather than anxiously denied, actually liberates you. When you stop fighting against the nature of things, when you stop investing your psychological well-being in the fantasy that impermanence can be overcome, you discover a kind of peace that no external change can disturb, because it is rooted in something that does not change, your character, your values, your chosen response to whatever comes. While the deep structure of chaos has always been the same, the fundamental impermanence of all conditioned things, the specific textures of chaos in the 21st century have features that deserve explicit attention, because understanding them clearly is the first step toward applying Stoic principles effectively to them. The first and most pervasive source of modern chaos is the information environment. Human beings evolved in small communities where the relevant information for daily life was local, slow-moving, and largely comprehensible. Our nervous systems are calibrated to process a certain volume of threat information, to evaluate it, respond to it, and then return to baseline. The modern news and social media environment violates every one of these calibrations. It delivers a continuous, unfiltered, algorithmically optimized stream of threat information: wars, disasters, crimes, political crises, health scares, social conflicts, drawn from every corner of the planet, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, specifically engineered to maximize emotional arousal, because emotional arousal generates engagement, and engagement generates advertising revenue. The result is a mass population in a state of chronic low-grade fight-or-flight activation that was designed by evolution for short-term survival emergencies, not for sustained daily operation. Chronic stress hormones, particularly cortisol, when maintained at elevated levels over months and years, compromise immune function, cardiovascular health, cognitive performance, sleep quality, and emotional regulation. We are, in a very literal physiological sense, being made sick by the information environment we have created. The second major source of modern chaos is economic precarity and complexity. Global capitalism has created extraordinary material abundance alongside extraordinary economic volatility. Technological automation is transforming entire industries within single generations, rendering skills obsolete and creating new ones faster than educational systems can adapt. Gig economy arrangements have replaced stable employment for tens of millions of workers, creating freedom at the cost of security. Global supply chains create interdependencies of such complexity that their disruption by a pandemic, a geopolitical conflict, a climate event, can cascade into economic crises affecting hundreds of millions of people who have no direct relationship to the original cause. The feeling that one's economic foundation is inherently unstable, that the ground beneath one's feet can shift without warning, is not paranoid, but realistic. The third source is social and relational fragmentation. The shift from community-based to network-based social life, while expanding the number of people one can be connected to, has dramatically reduced the depth, reciprocity, and sustained commitment of most social relationships. The social bonds that in previous centuries provided the primary buffer against hardship, extended family networks, long-term community membership, religious congregations, stable friendships formed over decades, have been significantly eroded by geographic mobility, digital distraction, and cultural hyper-individualism. Humans are profoundly social animals whose psychological health depends on genuine belonging, on being truly known and truly accepted by a community of people with whom they share a history. That need is not being met for a large and growing proportion of the modern population. One of the most powerful and counterintuitive insights that Stoicism offers to people struggling with modern chaos is this. Much of your suffering about the world's unpredictability comes not from the unpredictability itself, but from the fiction that you were ever supposed to be in control of external events. The idea that a sufficiently intelligent, sufficiently hard-working, sufficiently virtuous person can control their outcomes, can guarantee health, financial security, relational happiness, professional success, is one of the most psychologically damaging myths of modern Western culture. It is the myth of meritocracy taken to its metaphysical extreme. The belief that the universe is a just machine that rewards those who do the right things with the outcomes they deserve. The Stoics would identify this as the root of much unnecessary suffering. Not because the world is unjust, though it often is, but because the very structure of your expectations is misconceived. You are a small, finite, mortal creature in a universe of incomprehensible scale and complexity, governed by forces, biological, physical, social, historical, that dwarf your individual agency. The idea that you can control whether you get cancer, whether the economy crashes, whether a relationship works, whether your child is safe, whether the political party you oppose comes to power, is not an aspiration, but a delusion. And when you base your psychological well-being on the fulfillment of a delusion, you are manufacturing your own suffering. The good news, and it is extraordinarily good news, is that once you genuinely release the demand for control over external things, you discover that you have perfect, complete, inviolable control over something far more important, your internal response to whatever happens. The recognition that external chaos is genuinely beyond your control is not a counsel of despair. It is the beginning of freedom. If there is a single idea that can be called the central pillar of Stoic philosophy, the concept that, if you understand it fully and apply it consistently, has the power to transform your experience of life more radically than any other single insight. It is what scholars call the dichotomy of control, articulated most clearly and forcefully by Epictetus in the very first line of his Enchiridion. Some things are in our control and others not. This is on its surface so obvious as to seem trivially simple. Of course, some things are in our control and others are not. Everyone knows this, and yet, look at how you actually live your day. Notice how much of your mental and emotional energy is devoted to worrying about, strategizing about, or being distressed by things that are not in your control. What other people think of you, whether you will get the promotion, whether your partner will stay in love with you, whether your health will hold, whether the company will succeed, whether the world will become more or less sane. And notice how relatively little energy, by comparison, is devoted to the one thing that is entirely in your control, the quality of your own choices, judgments, and responses. The dichotomy of control is not merely an observation about the world. It is a discipline, a practice of rigorous, daily, moment-by-moment attention to this distinction. It demands that you ask, in every situation that causes you stress or difficulty, is this in my control? And if the honest answer is no, or even only partially, it demands that you redirect your energy from the uncontrollable to the controllable. Not with resignation, not with passive acceptance of bad outcomes, but with the kind of focused, purposeful engagement that becomes possible only when you stop wasting half your power on the impossible. Epictetus is specific about what falls within our control. Opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Opinion, what the Stoics called hypolepsis, refers to the judgments we make about things, the meanings we assign to events. When something happens to us, the pain or pleasure we experience is not caused directly by the event, but by the opinion, the interpretation we form about it. Epictetus's most quoted principle states this with crystalline clarity. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the opinions they form about things. A job loss is just an event, a configuration of facts. It is your opinion about that event. This is catastrophic. This proves I am worthless. This will ruin my life. That creates the suffering. And the opinion is something you formed, which means it is something you can examine, question, and potentially revise. Motivation refers to your impulse to act, the orientation of your will. What you choose to pursue, what you choose to move toward, the projects and relationships and ideals you invest your energy in, these are yours. While circumstances constrain your available options and outcomes are uncertain, the direction of your commitment, the quality of your engagement, the values that animate your striving, these are genuinely yours. Desire and aversion, what you want and what you want to avoid, are in the Stoic understanding, not automatic appetites, but judgments that can be trained and refined. You can learn to desire only what is truly good, virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and to regard external things as preferred or dispreferred, rather than truly desired or truly feared. This training is not easy, and it is not instantaneous, but it is possible, and its result is a kind of inner freedom that circumstance cannot reach. Everything else, health, reputation, wealth, relationships, the actions of others, political events, natural phenomena, the state of your body, falls outside the circle of what is truly ours. This does not mean these things are unimportant or that we should be indifferent to them. Epictetus and the other Stoics are careful to distinguish between things that are indifferent, neither truly good nor truly bad, and things that are preferred indifference or dispreferred indifference. Health is better than sickness. Wealth is more useful than poverty. Reputation can facilitate good action in the world. These things matter, and the Stoic is not prohibited from pursuing them. But they should be pursued with what the Stoics called the reserve clause, the caveat, always appended to intention and action. If nothing prevents me, or fate willing. Marcus Aurelius expressed this beautifully in his practice of what modern psychologists might call process orientation, rather than outcome orientation. Do the work with full commitment and full skill, accept the outcome without distress. The psychological implications of genuinely internalizing the dichotomy of control are profound. When you stop treating external outcomes as the condition of your happiness, you become effectively invulnerable to the most common forms of emotional disturbance. The opinion of others, which loses you enormous energy in the constant monitoring and management of your social image, becomes genuinely less important, not because you become antisocial, but because you understand that your worth is not determined by their judgment. The fear of failure, which paralyzes countless intelligent, talented people into inaction, loses its grip, because you understand that your control extends only to the quality of your effort and your choices, not to the outcome. The terror of loss and of health, of loved ones, of security, softens, not because you stop caring about the things you might lose, but because your deepest sense of self is no longer staked on their continued presence. Understanding the dichotomy of control intellectually is the beginning. The real work is practicing it in the heat of daily life. Before you begin each day, take 5 to 10 minutes to mentally survey what lies ahead. For each significant task, interaction, or concern, ask explicitly, what part of this is in my control? What is not? Write this down if helpful. Your answers will clarify where to direct your energy and where to practice acceptance. When you notice yourself becoming emotionally activated by an external event, angry, anxious, envious, devastated, introduce a deliberate pause before you act on that activation. In the space of that pause, ask, is what is disturbing me actually in my control? If not, is my disturbance serving me or the situation in any way? This practice builds the neural pathway between stimulus and chosen response that is the practical foundation of Stoic equanimity. Before sleep, review the day's key moments. Identify instances where you responded from fear, anger, or craving, where you were pulled into the orbit of the uncontrollable. Do not judge these instances harshly. but examine them honestly. What could you have done differently? What did you do well? This is the practice Marcus Aurelius himself performed, and the cumulative effect of honest daily self-examination is a gradual, genuine shift in the automatic orientation of your attention. The discipline requires patience. You will not master it quickly. You will spend weeks and months noticing in retrospect that you gave hours of emotional energy to something entirely outside your control. That is fine. The noticing is the practice. Every time you catch yourself in the act of worrying about the uncontrollable and redirect your attention to what you can actually do, you are strengthening a capacity that, over time, with consistency, becomes something close to invincible. At the heart of Stoic ethics lies a claim that is, by the standards of most modern value systems, genuinely radical. Virtue, moral excellence, the excellences of character that constitute a good human being, is the only genuine good, and everything else is at best preferred or dispreferred and at deepest level morally neutral, neither truly good nor truly bad in itself. This claim cuts against virtually every assumption of consumer culture, which is built on the foundational premise that what you need in order to be happy is more. More money, more possessions, more status, more pleasure, more comfort, more security. It cuts against the widespread belief that happiness is primarily a function of circumstances, of having the right partner, the right career, the right body, the right financial situation. And it cuts against the intuition, shared by most people, that health is obviously good and sickness obviously bad, that wealth is obviously better than poverty, that pleasure is obviously preferable to pain. The Stoics acknowledged these intuitions. They are not fools, but they argued with considerable force that the evidence of both experience and reason points toward a different conclusion. If health were genuinely good, good in the sense that it makes the one who possesses it better, happier, more complete, then every healthy person would be happy and every sick person would be miserable. But we know this is not true. We know people whose physical health is excellent and whose lives are hollow, joyless, meaningless. We know people who are gravely ill and who are clearly living with depth, purpose, and even joy. If wealth were genuinely good, every wealthy person would be flourishing and every poor person would be suffering. But again, the evidence does not support this. What actually determines the quality of a human life, the depth of its meaning, the richness of its experience, its resilience in the face of adversity, is character. The Stoics organized virtue around four cardinal excellences inherited from the earlier Greek philosophical tradition, but given a distinctly Stoic articulation. These are not arbitrary categories, but genuinely comprehensive. They cover between them the full range of human excellence as the Stoics conceived it. Wisdom, phronesis, is the most fundamental virtue from which the others flow. Wisdom, in the Stoic sense, is not primarily the accumulation of information, but the capacity to see reality clearly, to understand what is truly good and truly bad, to distinguish between what is in your control and what is not, to perceive the nature of a situation accurately and respond to it appropriately. It includes practical wisdom, the ability to apply general principles to specific situations, and theoretical wisdom, the understanding of the nature of things, including the nature of the human mind, the nature of society, and the nature of the universe. Without wisdom, the other virtues cannot function properly. Courage without wisdom becomes recklessness. Justice without wisdom becomes rigidity. Courage, Andrea, is not merely physical bravery, though it includes that, but the broader capacity to face difficulty, uncertainty, pain, and the disapproval of others without being deflected from the path of virtue. Courage is what allows you to say the difficult truth when everyone around you would prefer comfortable silence. It is what allows you to persist in a worthy course of action when circumstances become hostile. It is what allows you to confront your own flaws and failures honestly, rather than hiding behind self-deception. In the Stoic understanding, courage is the virtue that makes all the others sustainable under pressure. Justice, dikaiosune, is perhaps the most socially oriented of the virtues, encompassing the full range of one's obligations to others. Honesty, fairness, generosity, the recognition of the equal dignity of all rational beings, the commitment to the common good. The Stoics were deeply committed to the idea that human beings are, by nature, social creatures, whose flourishing is inextricably bound to the flourishing of the communities, family, city, humanity as a whole, to which they belong. Marcus Aurelius returns repeatedly to the theme that his role as emperor required not the maximization of his own personal happiness, but the faithful discharge of his obligations to the Roman people, to all of humanity, to the divine order. Justice is what keeps the other virtues from turning inward and becoming self-serving. Temperance, sophrosin, is the ability to maintain appropriate moderation and self-control in the face of desire, pleasure, and appetite. Not asceticism for its own sake. The Stoics were not opposed to enjoyment, but the refusal to be enslaved by desire, to have your actions determined by what you crave rather than what you judge to be right. Temperance is what prevents wisdom from becoming purely theoretical, courage from becoming grandiose, and justice from becoming performative. It is the discipline of the self in the service of all the other virtues. The theoretical understanding of virtue is one thing, choosing to organize your actual life around it, to make virtue rather than pleasure, wealth, status, or comfort the primary criterion by which you evaluate your decisions and actions, is another. It requires a fundamental reorientation of values, a practice that unfolds gradually over years rather than being accomplished in a single moment of insight. One of the most practically useful aspects of the virtue framework is that it provides a clear, consistent answer to the most common decision-making question: what should I do? When faced with a difficult choice, the virtue-centered person asks not, what will maximize my pleasure, or what will make me look good, or what is the safest choice, but rather, what would the courageous person do? What would the wise person do? What would the just person do? What would the person of genuine self-mastery do? These questions cut through an enormous amount of cognitive noise and point reliably toward the response that, regardless of its external outcome, you will not be ashamed of later. The Stoics also recognized that virtue is not a static achievement, but a continuous practice. You do not become virtuous once and then coast. Every day presents new challenges to your wisdom, your courage, your justice, your self-mastery. Every day, you will fall short in one way or another. The practice is not to achieve perfection, but to commit to consistent, honest daily effort, to what Marcus Aurelius called simply doing the work, returning each morning to the intention of living well, and accepting each evening's honest accounting of how close you came. There is a paradox at the heart of modern existence that the Stoics, had they been alive today, would have recognized immediately and analyzed with characteristic precision. We live in the most materially abundant civilization in human history, surrounded by more options, more pleasures, more comforts, and more opportunities than any previous generation could have imagined, and yet rates of dissatisfaction, anxiety, and psychological suffering have been rising steadily for decades. The more we have, the more we want. The more we achieve, the further the horizon of sufficient achievement seems to recede. The faster we consume, the more urgently we feel the need to consume more. This phenomenon, which psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, was understood by the Stoics not as a product of any particular social arrangement, but as a structural feature of the unreformed human mind. Desire, in its raw, untutored state, has no natural stopping point. It is not satisfied by fulfillment. It is inflamed by it. Every time you achieve what you desired, the brain recalibrates rapidly to a new baseline, and the desire renews itself at a slightly higher level. This is not a failure of willpower or character. It is the design of the system. The Stoics did not regard this as an inevitable fate, but as a pattern that could be interrupted through the development of specific mental disciplines. Chief among these disciplines was what Epictetus called the practice of desire and aversion, the systematic training of what you want and what you fear, such that your wanting and your fearing are directed at things actually within your control and actually conducive to your genuine flourishing. One of the most powerful and counterintuitive Stoic practices for managing desire is the art of negative visualization, the deliberate, regular contemplation of loss, misfortune, and worst-case scenarios. This practice, which the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, runs directly counter to the positive thinking paradigm that dominates most contemporary self-help culture, where positive thinking says, imagine the best outcome and feel as if it has already happened. Stoic negative visualization says, imagine with vivid clarity the loss of the things you currently have and the arrival of the things you currently fear. The purpose of this practice is not to cultivate pessimism or to manufacture suffering in advance of its arrival. It is to accomplish two specific psychological objectives. First, it disrupts the hedonic adaptation process by reactivating your gratitude for what you currently have. When you spend 5 minutes genuinely contemplating the loss of your health, your sight, your ability to walk, your relationship with your partner, your children's safety, you emerge from that contemplation with a sharpened, vivid awareness of just how fortunate you actually are. The things you take for granted, that you can wake up in the morning, that your body functions, that the people you love are alive and present, become for a time newly miraculous. Second, negative visualization removes the sting of the feared event by familiarizing you with it. When you have genuinely contemplated a worst-case scenario, financial ruin, serious illness, the death of someone you love, and thought through how you would respond, what resources you would draw on, what the experience might actually look like from the inside, the scenario loses much of its power to terrify. Fear thrives in the fog of the unimagined. Negative visualization burns that fog away. Marcus Aurelius practiced a form of negative visualization in his private meditations, regularly reminding himself of the impermanence of his own life, his empire, his accomplishments. This is not morbidity. It is the kind of clear-sighted honesty about the nature of things that makes genuine peace possible. A closely related Stoic practice is the deliberate, voluntary embrace of discomfort, of cold, hunger, fatigue, social embarrassment, physical hardship, not as punishment, but as training. Seneca writes to Lucilius, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? The purpose is not masochism. It is the training of one's relationship to comfort and discomfort, such that neither the presence of comfort nor the absence of it has the power to control one's inner state. When you voluntarily go without something you normally rely on, comfort, convenience, a particular food, your phone, a certain social environment, and discover that you can function, that the feared deprivation is not in fact devastating, you are accumulating evidence against the tyranny of your own desires. You are proving to yourself, through direct experience rather than abstract reasoning, that you are more than your preferences, that your capacity for well-being is not hostage to the continued availability of any particular external condition. In the modern context, this practice might take many forms: regular cold showers, periodic fasting, deliberately walking when you could drive, sleeping on a hard surface occasionally, spending a day without digital devices. None of these need to be extreme or prolonged. The point is the regular intentional encounter with discomfort, the regular proof to yourself that you can endure, that you are not fragile, that the things you fear losing are not in fact the source of your strength. The Stoic is not a contemplative recluse. The philosophy was not designed for monks, hermits, or people who have withdrawn from the affairs of the world into philosophical seclusion. It was designed above all for people in the middle of things. For Marcus Aurelius, running the largest empire on earth; for Seneca, navigating the lethal intricacies of the imperial court; for Epictetus, teaching students in a busy school. Stoicism is fundamentally a philosophy of engaged, vigorous action in the world, action undertaken with full commitment, full skill, and full indifference to the outcome. This paradox, full commitment combined with indifference to outcome, is one of the most sophisticated and practically powerful ideas in the entire Stoic system. It resolves a tension that torments many high-achieving people, the conflict between caring enough to give your maximum effort and caring too much to bear the possibility of failure. The Stoic answer is, care completely about the quality of your effort and the integrity of your process. Do not care at all, or care only minimally, about whether the specific outcome you are working toward materializes. This is not a counsel of laziness or half-effort. The Stoics were deeply committed to excellence in action. Marcus Aurelius writes, "Do what nature requires. Start immediately if possible. Don't look around to see if people will know about it. Don't expect Plato's ideal state, but be satisfied with even the smallest step forward and regard it as no small achievement. The standard of action is excellence, the full deployment of your capacities in the service of a worthy objective. What is released is the outcome." One of the most practically powerful Stoic insights about action is the absolute priority of the present moment. The past is gone and it cannot be changed. The future is not yet here. It is uncertain and largely beyond our control. The only moment in which you actually have the capacity to act, to choose, to apply your will and your skill and your character, is this one, now. Most human suffering about external circumstances is either regret about the past or anxiety about the future. Regret is a form of suffering about something that is entirely outside your control. It has already happened. Anxiety is a form of suffering about something that may or may not happen, and that in any case you are not currently equipped to address because it has not yet arrived. Both are forms of attention directed at things that are not available to your action. The present moment is different. The present moment is where you actually live. The present moment is where choice is possible, where effort can be applied, where character can be expressed. Marcus Aurelius, in a passage of extraordinary practical wisdom, writes, "Confine yourself to the present. This is not a mystical statement. It is a directive about the efficient allocation of cognitive and emotional resources. When you find your mind pulled into past regret or future anxiety, the Stoic practice is simply to ask, what is available to me right now? What can I actually do in this moment? And then to do it, fully, without reservation, without the fragmentary half-attention that comes from simultaneously grieving the past and dreading the future." Stoic philosophy is deeply social. The Stoics believed that human beings are fundamentally social animals, whose nature includes an impulse toward community, mutual aid, and contribution to the common good. They articulated this through the concept of oikeiosis, a Greek term describing the natural process by which the circle of concern extends outward, from oneself to one's family, one's community, one's city, and ultimately to all of humanity. Marcus Aurelius uses the metaphor of the cosmopolitan, the citizen of the world, repeatedly in his meditations. This is not idealistic naivety. It is the recognition that the logic of human connectedness, if followed honestly, has no natural stopping point at the boundary of one's own tribe or nation. The welfare of every rational being is relevant to me because every rational being shares in the same logos, the same divine reason that I participate in. Practically, this means that Stoic action is always in some sense aimed beyond the self. The question is not only what is best for me, but what is required of me by the roles I occupy and the community I belong to. Marcus returns obsessively to the question of duty, what his role as emperor required of him, how his actions served or failed to serve the well-being of those in his care. The fulfillment of one's duties, even when they are difficult, inconvenient, or unrewarding, is itself a form of virtue and a source of genuine satisfaction that no purely self-interested pursuit can replicate. At the cognitive core of Stoic practice is a model of the human mind that, while formulated 2,000 years before modern cognitive science, anticipates in striking ways some of the most important findings of contemporary psychological research. The Stoics described the basic unit of mental experience as the phantasia, usually translated as impression or appearance, by which they meant the initial automatic mental representation of an event, a person, a situation, or a thought. When you see someone cut you off in traffic, an impression forms. That person is disrespecting me. When you receive a critical email from a colleague, an impression forms. I am being attacked. When you look at your bank account and the number is lower than you expected, an impression forms. I am failing. The Stoics observed with great precision that these initial impressions are not reality. They are representations of reality filtered through your prior experiences, assumptions, emotions, and habitual interpretive frameworks. The person who cut you off may not have seen you. The critical email may reflect your colleague's stress rather than genuine hostility to you. The lower bank balance may be the result of a planned expenditure you had simply forgotten. The impression is not the fact. And here is the decisive Stoic insight. Between the formation of the impression and the response to it, between stimulus and reaction, there is a space. And in that space lies the entirety of your freedom. Epictetus calls this space the faculty of assent. The capacity to examine an impression before accepting it as true, before acting on it, before allowing it to trigger the full cascade of emotional and behavioral response. This faculty is what separates a rational being from an animal. The dog, when it sees food, salivates and reaches. The human being, when an impression forms, has the capacity to pause, examine, question, and choose. One of the most practically powerful Stoic tools for working with impressions is the practice of suspending judgment, of deliberately withholding assent from an impression until you have examined it more carefully. The Stoics called this epoche, a suspension of the immediate automatic evaluative response that usually follows hard on the heels of an impression before there is any time for genuine assessment. In practice, this means that when something happens that triggers an emotional response, anger, anxiety, hurt, craving, you insert a deliberate gap between the trigger and the response. In that gap, you ask, is this impression accurate? Am I interpreting this situation correctly? Is there another way to see this? What would a wise person make of this? The questions do not guarantee that you will arrive at a better interpretation. Sometimes your initial impression is accurate, but the practice of asking them, the habit of not automatically accepting the first interpretation your mind offers, gradually makes you less vulnerable to the distortions of fearful, angry, or craving interpretation, and more capable of responding to what is actually happening rather than to what you initially feared or assumed was happening. The Stoics frequently used the metaphor of the inner citadel, a fortress at the center of the self that the chaos of the external world, however violent, cannot breach. This metaphor is not merely poetic. It describes a real psychological reality, the possibility of developing an inner life so grounded, so clear, so rooted in genuine values and consistent practice that external events, including very severe ones, do not have the power to shatter your fundamental orientation. Marcus Aurelius writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The inner citadel is not built by positive thinking or affirmations. It is built through the consistent, patient practice of the Stoic disciplines, the daily examination of what is and is not in your control, the regular cultivation of virtue, the practice of suspended judgment, the acceptance of impermanence, the contemplation of death. It is built, in other words, through the kind of rigorous, daily, honest inner work that most people avoid because it is uncomfortable and because the results are slow to arrive. But it is built. It can be built. History is full of people who built it, people who, in circumstances of extreme adversity, displayed a quality of inner stability that astonished and inspired those around them. The common thread was not unusual genetics or exceptional circumstances. It was practice. In contemporary Western culture, death is hidden. We move the dying to hospitals and nursing homes, away from the flow of daily life. We speak of it in euphemisms. We spend enormous resources on the medical project of postponing it. We fill our entertainment with death as spectacle, in films, video games, news, while simultaneously maintaining a powerful cultural taboo against its serious personal contemplation. Death is everywhere and nowhere, omnipresent as entertainment, effectively invisible as a lived reality that each of us is actively engaged in moving toward. The Stoics took the opposite approach. Memento mori, remember that you will die, was not a morbid slogan, but a daily practice, a cognitive tool of extraordinary power for clarifying what matters, sharpening attention, dissolving trivial concerns, and motivating genuine action. The deliberate, regular contemplation of one's own death was considered by Stoics not as a form of pessimism, but as the highest form of philosophical hygiene, a practice that cleared away the accumulated sediment of distraction, vanity, and triviality, and revealed the essential bedrock of what truly counts. Seneca, who was ordered to kill himself at the age of 68, and did so with legendary composure, wrote throughout his life about death, with an unusual combination of honesty and serenity. "Rehearse death," he wrote. "To say this is to tell a person to rehearse his freedom. A person who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave." This is not merely philosophical posturing. It reflects a genuine insight about the relationship between the acceptance of death and the quality of life. When you have genuinely made peace with your own mortality, you are freed from the chronic low-grade terror that it engenders in those who refuse to look at it, and that freedom, paradoxically, makes life more vivid, more precious, and more fully inhabited than it ever was when you were too frightened to examine its limits. Closely related to the practice of memento mori is Seneca's great meditation on time in his essay on the shortness of life. This essay, written roughly 2,000 years ago, reads with the urgency of a contemporary document. Its central argument is simple but devastating. Life is not short. We are given ample time. What we are not given, what we waste with a profligacy that, if applied to money, would horrify us, is attention. We sleepwalk through our years, distracted by trivial busyness, chasing pleasures that don't satisfy, postponing the things that matter most, deferring our actual life to a future that may never arrive. The key insight is not that life is short, but that most people live only a fraction of the life available to them, because they are perpetually either reliving the past or projecting into the future, and never fully present in the only moment that actually exists. The Stoic practice of memento mori is therefore not primarily about death, but about life. When you genuinely remember that you will die, when that recognition is vivid and present rather than an abstract fact filed away in a distant mental drawer, the quality of your attention to the present moment changes. The ordinary becomes luminous. The trivial reveals itself as trivial. The important reveals itself as important. The people you love become more precious. The work you are doing becomes more significant. You become less willing to waste the irreplaceable currency of your attention on the small angers, petty comparisons, and empty distractions that swallow so many of our hours. The practice of memento mori is not difficult to describe, but it does require genuine engagement rather than the superficial acknowledgement that you will die someday. Each morning before the day begins, take a moment to acknowledge, genuinely, not as a formality, that this day may be your last, not because you have reason to expect death today, but as a reminder that every day is a gift that cannot be taken for granted. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, would I be satisfied with how I am living it? What would I not want to leave undone? When you find yourself agonizing over a decision, a conflict, or a disappointment, ask, how will this look from my deathbed? Will this matter when I am dying? Many things that feel urgently important today will look trivial from that perspective, and the deathbed view is a reliable filter for separating the genuinely significant from the urgently trivial. The cumulative effect of these practices, maintained consistently over months and years, is a fundamental shift in the relationship to time. People who have done serious work with memento mori often report a paradoxical result. They become less afraid of death and more alive to life. The shadow that mortality casts, the shadow that, unacknowledged, darkens the colors of ordinary experience and drives the frantic, unexamined busyness of the life not truly lived, loses its grip, and in its place comes a quality of vivid, grateful presence that is perhaps the finest gift that Stoic philosophy can offer. Acceptance is often presented as the highest form of dealing with difficulty. You accept what you cannot change, stop fighting against it, and move forward. This is good advice and represents genuine progress for many people. But the Stoics, particularly in the mature expression of their philosophy, aimed at something even more radical than acceptance. They aimed at what Nietzsche, a devoted reader of the Stoics, would later call amor fati, the love of fate. Amor fati is not merely the cessation of resistance to what is. It is the genuine, wholehearted embrace of what is, the affirmation, not just the tolerance of the reality that has come to you, including its difficulties, its disappointments, its losses, and its pain. Marcus Aurelius writes, "Love only what happens to you and what is woven into your fate, for what could be more fitting for you?" And elsewhere, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." The transformative aspiration here is not to endure hardship, but to metabolize it, to be a fire that turns everything, even suffering, even loss, even failure, into something useful, something bright, something more. This is an extremely high standard. It is not a standard that any human being achieves consistently or completely, but it is the direction in which serious Stoic practice points, and even partial movement toward it. Even the beginning of a willingness to not merely endure one's circumstances, but to say yes to them, to find within them what is useful and real, represents a qualitative transformation in the experience of life. The Stoic practice of amor fati is grounded in a theological conviction that the universe is governed by a rational providential order, the logos, and that everything that happens, including everything that appears from the limited perspective of the individual human life to be senseless, cruel, or unjust, is in fact a necessary part of a larger rational order that, if we could see it whole, we would recognize as good. Even if we set aside the theological framework, the practical core of amor fati retains its power. You do not have to believe that the universe is ordered by a benevolent, rational principle to recognize that your suffering, your losses, your failures, your disappointments, contains within it the raw material of something valuable. Character is built through difficulty, not through ease. Wisdom is born from mistake, not from perfection. Compassion for others is deepened by one's own experience of pain, not by immunity to it. The person who has faced and survived genuine hardship carries a quality of depth, of perspective, of genuine resilience that cannot be acquired by any other means. When you begin to see your difficulties in this light, not as mere misfortunes to be endured, but as the specific conditions of your particular education, something shifts in the quality of your engagement with them. Marcus Aurelius articulated the principle of amor fati in action in one of the most quoted passages of the Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not optimistic spin doctoring. It is a precise description of the mechanism by which the Stoic mind transforms obstacles into opportunities. When you meet an obstacle from the orientation of amor fati, when your first response to difficulty is not, "Why is this happening to me?" but "How can I use this?" you discover that almost every form of resistance the world offers can be converted into fuel for growth, understanding, creativity, or service. The business that fails teaches you what you did not know about markets, people, or yourself. The relationship that ends painfully clarifies your values and your needs in ways that easier relationships never could. The illness that attacks your body may simultaneously deepen your compassion, your appreciation for health, your connection with mortality, your sense of what truly matters. The criticism that stings may contain within it the truth you most needed to hear. The Stoic analysis of emotion is one of the most sophisticated and practically useful aspects of the philosophy, and it is also one of the most misunderstood. The Stoics distinguished between two broad categories of emotional response: the passions, which were characterized as excessive, irrational responses based on false judgments, and the eupathiae, good emotions, which were the appropriate emotional responses of a well-ordered, rational soul. The path included four main types: desire, irrational craving for something that is judged to be good; fear, irrational aversion from something that is judged to be bad; pleasure, irrational delight based on the belief that something external is genuinely good; and pain or distress, irrational suffering based on the belief that something external is genuinely bad. The Stoics called these irrational, not because emotion itself is irrational, but because these particular emotions are based on a false premise, the premise that external things are truly good or truly bad. The eupathiae, by contrast, were the appropriate emotional responses of the Stoic sage. Joy, experienced in relation to genuine goods rather than external things; caution, directed only at genuine evils, rather than mere dispreferred external events, and wishing or willing, oriented toward genuine goods. These were not cold, diminished versions of ordinary emotion. They were, in the Stoic understanding, deeper and more satisfying, because they were grounded in reality rather than in illusion. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius after the death of their mutual friend Flaccus, with evident and undisguised sorrow. He did not pretend not to feel the loss. He felt it fully. What he refused to do was be consumed by it beyond a period that was proportionate and appropriate. He writes, "I have lost a friend who was very dear to me. Yet I will not therefore say that I have lost what I loved, for I still love him though he is gone." This is not suppression, it is transformation, the grief that honors the lost person and the relationship, expressed fully and genuinely, but held within a larger framework that does not allow it to eclipse everything else. Of all the emotions that the Stoics wrote about most extensively and most urgently, anger occupies a special place. Seneca's essay on anger, the longest of his philosophical works, is one of the most penetrating analyses of this emotion in all of philosophy. His diagnosis is unsparing. Anger is an essentially irrational passion, one of the most destructive forces in human life, capable of unraveling in moments what has been built over years, of making intelligent people stupid, dignified people contemptible, and powerful people helpless. "Show me a man who is not a slave," Seneca writes. The insight is that anger, whatever the justification for it, makes you less free, less rational, less effective. It narrows your perspective to the point of the wound, while closing off your awareness of context, consequence, and proportion. It makes you reactive, puts you in the power of the person or situation that triggered you, precisely when you most need to be deliberate and sovereign. The Stoic approach to anger is not suppression, the forced crushing of the emotion before it can be expressed. Suppression is both psychologically damaging and practically counterproductive. The Stoic approach is transformation, the conversion of anger's energy from the irrational passion of the path into the appropriate response of a just person who recognizes a genuine wrong and addresses it with clear-eyed, measured, effective action. The practical toolkit for working with anger that Seneca and other Stoics developed is remarkably consonant with what modern cognitive behavioral therapy has independently discovered. Delay the response when possible. Examine the impression that triggered the anger. Distinguish between the event and your interpretation of it. Consider the other person's perspective and circumstances. Ask what response would actually be most effective rather than most emotionally satisfying. One of the most fundamentally countercultural ideas in Stoic philosophy, and one of the most important, is the conviction that hardship is not an unfortunate interruption in the natural trajectory of a good life, but a necessary condition of it. The Stoics did not merely teach that hardship can be borne with equanimity. They taught that hardship is genuinely good, not in the sense that suffering is pleasant, but in the sense that the virtues, capacities, and qualities of character that constitute genuine human excellence cannot be developed without it. Seneca articulates this with characteristic clarity in his essay on Providence. The good person does not suffer in spite of being good. The good person is tested because they are good, and the testing, the hardship, is the mechanism by which their goodness is deepened, proved, and made real. The fates lead those who will. Those who won't, they drag. The only question is whether you meet your difficulties actively, as a warrior, or passively as a victim. The modern world, saturated with the ideology of comfort and the medical technological project of minimizing suffering, has produced generations who are, in many cases, dramatically less resilient than previous generations who faced objectively harder lives with greater equanimity. This is not a moral failing. It is the predictable result of a culture that has systematically removed the conditions under which resilience is built. The encounter with difficulty, the experience of genuine effort, the discovery that hardship can be borne without being destroyed by it. Resilience, the capacity to absorb adversity, adapt to it, and emerge with capacity intact or enhanced, is not a fixed trait that you either have or don't have. It is a learned capability, built through specific experiences and practices. The first component is cognitive reframing, the capacity to find a useful interpretation of difficult events. This is not denial or self-deception. It is the genuine recognition that most events have multiple possible interpretations, and that the interpretation you choose has a profound effect on your emotional response and your behavioral options. The person who loses a job and interprets it as proof that they are worthless has dramatically fewer options than the person who loses a job and interprets it as an opportunity to find work that better suits them. The second component is what might be called prospective courage, the willingness to engage proactively with difficult possibilities rather than avoiding them. People who are resilient in the face of adversity typically are not people who are surprised by it. They are people who have thought about what could go wrong, have prepared psychologically and practically for it, and who, when it arrives, find themselves in familiar rather than alien territory. This is the psychological benefit of the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, which not only reduces the shock of difficulty when it arrives, but actively prepares the mind to engage it effectively. The third component is the cultivation of self-efficacy, the genuine conviction, based on evidence, that you can handle what comes. Self-efficacy is built not through positive affirmations, but through the accumulated experience of having handled difficult things in the past. Every time you encounter a difficulty and engage it with courage and competence rather than avoidance, you add a brick to the structure of your self-efficacy. Over time, this structure becomes formidable, a body of evidence so substantial that when the next difficulty arrives, your nervous system recognizes the pattern and responds with engagement rather than collapse. The deepest form of resilience, the form that Marcus Aurelius displayed during 2 decades of military campaign, plague, political conspiracy, and personal loss, is not a skill or a strategy, but a quality of character. It is the fruit of years, possibly decades, of consistent practice. It is built not in the moments of crisis, but in the ordinary moments, in the daily discipline of examining your values and aligning your actions with them, in the practice of meeting small difficulties with full engagement rather than avoidance, in the cultivation of genuine relationships of depth and reciprocity, in the regular practice of gratitude and the regular confrontation with mortality, in the progressive development of the capacity to be fully present to the actual texture of your life rather than perpetually anesthetized against it. Stoicism, like all genuine philosophy in the ancient world, was not primarily a set of ideas to be understood, but a set of practices to be lived. Marcus Aurelius did not read the Meditations. He wrote them as part of a daily practice of self-examination and self-correction. Epictetus did not simply teach the dichotomy of control, he practiced it daily in the specific circumstances of his life. The philosophy was the practice. Understanding this transforms one's relationship to the tradition. Instead of a body of texts to be studied, it becomes a living discipline to be applied, tested, refined, and deepened through the actual experience of your actual life. The Stoic morning practice begins before the day has properly started, ideally before other people or devices have the opportunity to claim your attention. The purpose of the morning practice is to set the compass, to re-establish your orientation toward the values and principles that you have committed to, before the inevitable demands and distractions of the day begin pulling you in multiple directions simultaneously. Take 5 to 15 minutes to sit quietly and review the day ahead. What challenges are you likely to face? What difficulties might arise? Who will you interact with, and what qualities will those interactions require of you? The purpose is not to generate anxiety about the day, but to prepare yourself, to rehearse in advance the application of Stoic principles to the specific situations you are about to encounter. Many practitioners of Stoic philosophy begin their day with a brief period of reading in the Stoic texts, a page of Marcus Aurelius, a letter from Seneca, a passage from Epictetus. The purpose is not academic study, but the kind of intellectual contact that recalibrates your values and reminds you of what you actually believe. Even 5 minutes of genuine engagement with these texts, in the morning silence before the day begins, can function as a kind of philosophical alarm clock, waking the better part of you to the possibility of living deliberately rather than reactively. Before you engage with the world, set a clear intention for the day. Not a to-do list, that is for a different kind of planning, but a quality of being. Today, I intend to respond to difficulty with equanimity. Today, I intend to listen more than I speak. Today, I intend to act from genuine consideration of others' well-being, not only my own. The morning practice sets the compass, but the real work of Stoic practice happens throughout the day, in the specific moments when the principles meet the grain of lived experience, when someone says something that makes you furious, when something goes wrong in a way you didn't anticipate, when you feel the pull of desire or the grip of fear. The most powerful single tool in the Stoic daily practice is the deliberate pause, the insertion of a gap between stimulus and response. This can be practiced in any moment of emotional activation. Take a breath, create a literal physical pause, and ask, is what I am about to do consistent with who I want to be? Is it wise? Is it just? Is it courageous? Is it in my control? Even a 3-second pause can transform a reactive response into a chosen response. Several times during the day, practice a brief check-in. Am I living in accordance with my values right now? Is my attention focused on what is in my control? Have I allowed any impression or emotion to master my responses in a way I will not be proud of tonight? Marcus Aurelius returns to the theme of difficult people repeatedly. In the morning when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being. He regularly reminded himself that the difficult people he would encounter were essentially acting from ignorance, that no one does wrong voluntarily, but only from misunderstanding about what is truly good. This is not a counsel of naive trust or passive acceptance of mistreatment. It is a cognitive tool for maintaining the equanimity to respond effectively rather than reactively. The Stoic day ends as it begins, with deliberate, honest self-examination. The evening review was a practice recommended by multiple Stoic philosophers. It is simple in structure, but powerful in effect. At the end of the day, before sleep, you review the day that has passed with the eye of a wise but compassionate judge. The classical Stoic formulation comes from Seneca, who describes a nightly practice of asking 3 questions. What bad habit have I cured today? What vice have I resisted? In what respect am I better? These questions are framed in terms of progress and failure, not as occasions for harsh self-condemnation, but as honest assessments of how the actual day measured against the intended life. Where did you fall short? What specifically caused the shortfall? What might you do differently tomorrow, and where did you succeed? The combination of honest self-assessment and forward-facing recommitment is, over time, one of the most powerful tools available for genuine character development. Contrary to the caricature of the emotionless Stoic, the Stoics placed enormous value on friendship and regarded it as one of the most significant goods available to a human life. Seneca's letters to Lucilius are suffused with warmth, care, and the kind of intellectual intimacy that only deep friendship can sustain. Without a friend, Seneca writes, no man can be truly alone. The Stoic ideal of friendship was, however, different from the modern conception in one important respect. It was grounded in virtue rather than in pleasure or utility. The Stoics endorsed Aristotle's distinction between friendships of utility, friendships of pleasure, and friendships of virtue, arguing that only friendships of virtue were the deepest and most enduring form because they were based on something that did not change with circumstance. In practice, this means that the Stoic approach to friendship involves a level of honesty and mutual accountability that is absent from many modern relationships. True Stoic friends tell each other hard truths. They point out each other's errors and blind spots, not with cruelty, but with the genuine desire to help the other person become better. The primary Stoic insight about romantic love is the one that applies to all attachments. You can love deeply and genuinely while simultaneously holding that love without clinging. The Stoic does not love less than the non-Stoic. The Stoic may, in fact, love more completely, because the Stoic loves from a position of inner security, rather than from the position of someone whose sense of self depends on the loved one's continued presence and regard. The love that clings, that cannot accept the possibility of loss, that generates constant anxiety about whether the beloved will leave, whether they love you enough, whether you are adequate to their needs, is a love that is, at its root, more about the lover's need than about genuine care for the beloved. No area of human experience tests the Stoic principles more severely than the death of someone we love. Intellectual equanimity about impermanence is one thing when contemplated in the abstract. It is something entirely different when the impermanence in question takes the form of an empty chair at the table, a voice that will never speak again, a presence that the body continues to reach for in the first moments of waking. The Stoics were not indifferent to this. They did not teach that grief is inappropriate or that the death of a loved one should be met with philosophical coolness. What they taught is that grief, like all emotions, should be fully felt but not allowed to consume and hollow out the griever's capacity for life. Seneca, writing to Marcia, who has been grieving her son for years, writes with genuine compassion, "Let there be an end to grief, not because the grief is inappropriate, but because the person who has been lost would not want the remainder of the griever's life to be a monument to their absence." The Stoic approach to grief honors the love that gives birth to grief. It does not try to diminish it or explain it away. It simply holds it within the larger context of a continuing life, a life that the grief does not negate, but that the grief, if unchecked, will eat. The digital revolution presents challenges to human psychological well-being that the ancient Stoics could not have anticipated, but that the core principles of their philosophy are extraordinarily well-equipped to address. The smartphone, that small luminous rectangle that most people now spend more waking hours attending to than to any other single thing in their lives, is, from a Stoic perspective, the most sophisticated machine for the violation of Stoic principles ever invented. It is a perfectly engineered instrument for directing attention constantly toward things outside your control, for generating an endless stream of impressions that provoke emotional reactions before there is any opportunity for the discipline of assent, for making the hedonic treadmill spin faster than any previous technology. The Stoic response to the digital environment begins with the recognition, the clear, honest, uncomfortable recognition that the relationship with your device is not primarily determined by the device's technical characteristics, but by the quality of your own attention and the strength of your own values. A person of strong Stoic training, confronting social media, is less vulnerable to its algorithmic manipulations, not because they have better privacy settings, but because they have developed the discipline to notice in real time when their attention is being pulled toward the uncontrollable and to redirect it toward what is genuinely theirs. Practically, Stoic digital hygiene might include regular periods of deliberate digital abstinence practiced with the same spirit as the Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort, a clear, values-based framework for how you choose to allocate your digital attention, the practice of the morning discipline of reading before looking at any screen, and the regular cultivation of face-to-face, embodied human contact as a counterweight to the thin, mediated quality of most digital connection. We live in a time of intense political polarization, a cultural moment in which political identity has become, for many people, a primary source of meaning and belonging, and in which the actions of political actors and the outcomes of political processes are felt to carry existential weight. The Stoics, who lived under autocratic governments and witnessed the collapse of the Roman Republic, the reigns of multiple mad emperors, and the regular upheaval of political life, have a great deal to say about how to maintain one's psychological equanimity and moral integrity in the face of political chaos. The fundamental Stoic principle applied to politics is the same as everywhere else. Distinguish between what is and is not in your control. You cannot control the outcome of elections. You cannot control the behavior of politicians. You cannot control the direction of public opinion or the choices made by your fellow citizens. What you can control is your own political engagement, whether you vote and how, whether you speak honestly and courageously in your own sphere of influence, whether you treat political opponents with the same basic dignity you accord to those who agree with you, whether your political convictions are based on genuine reflection rather than tribal loyalty. The Stoics were also notable for their cosmopolitanism, their conviction that the primary political community to which one belongs is not one's nation, city, or tribe, but the community of rational beings, humanity itself. The scale of perspective that this cosmopolitan view affords is itself a powerful antidote to the kind of political anxiety that mistakes the particular configuration of the world at any given moment for a permanent and final truth. The question of how to relate to career success, financial achievement, and professional status is one of the most practically pressing areas in which Stoic philosophy can be applied. For many modern people, particularly in high-achieving professional environments, the pursuit of career success has become the organizing principle of their lives, the primary lens through which they evaluate their worth, and the most significant source of both satisfaction and anxiety. The Stoic perspective on this dynamic is both challenging and liberating. The challenge is this: if you are defining your worth by your professional achievements, if your sense of yourself as a good and valuable person depends substantially on whether your career is progressing as you hoped, you have outsourced the evaluation of your value to a set of processes that are largely outside your control. This is not merely philosophically objectionable, it is psychologically dangerous. The liberation is this: the Stoic framework does not prohibit the pursuit of professional excellence. It says, rather, pursue your work with full commitment, full skill, and the complete deployment of your capacities. Do so because the quality of your engagement is itself a form of virtue, but do not attach your sense of worth or well-being to the outcome. This reorientation removes the anxiety that corrupts so many people's experience of otherwise satisfying work. When you are working for the love of the work itself, for the expression of your genuine capacities, for the service of others or of something larger than yourself, rather than for the validation that success provides, the work becomes cleaner, more satisfying, and paradoxically more likely to be genuinely excellent. One of the most beautiful and profound aspects of Stoic philosophy is its vision of the human community, a vision that transcends the boundaries of nation, culture, ethnicity, and social status to articulate a genuinely universal conception of human dignity and human solidarity. This vision, known as cosmopolitanism, holds that every human being, by virtue of their possession of rational capacity, their participation in the Logos, is a member of a single community that encompasses all of humanity. The practical and ethical implications of this vision are sweeping. If every human being is, in the most fundamental sense, my fellow citizen, if the Logos that thinks through me also thinks through the slave, the foreigner, the enemy, the criminal, the person whose values and beliefs are most alien to mine, then the moral circle of my obligations is radically expanded. I cannot treat any human being merely as a tool, or as less than a person, or as fundamentally other to myself, without violating the deepest conviction of my philosophical tradition. Marcus Aurelius expressed this conviction in a way that continues to move readers nearly 2,000 years later. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good that it is beautiful, and of the bad that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me, not only of the same blood or seed, but that it participates in the same intelligence and the same portion of the divinity, I can neither be injured by any of them. Service, genuine service, the offering of one's capacities in the direction of others' genuine welfare, is not merely a moral obligation in the Stoic framework. It is a primary source of meaning, a practice that aligns the individual life with the wider logic of human existence in a way that cannot be replicated by any form of self-directed pursuit. People who work in genuine service to others consistently report higher levels of meaning, purpose, and resilience than those who work primarily for personal gain, however successful the latter may be by external measures. The Stoic insight is that this alignment between individual action and the wider human good is not a sacrifice of self-interest, but its fulfillment. In the Stoic philosophical tradition, the figure of the sage, the sophos, represents the ideal of perfect Stoic wisdom, a human being who has fully actualized the Stoic virtues, whose every impression, desire, and action is perfectly aligned with reason and virtue, who experiences only the eupatheia and none of the pathe, who is completely free from the distortions of fear, craving, anger, and grief. The Stoics treated this figure with a mixture of seriousness and irony. They acknowledged that the true sage is extraordinarily rare, perhaps has appeared only once or twice in all of human history, or perhaps has never appeared at all, while insisting that the direction towards sagehood is the appropriate direction for every serious student of philosophy. The sage functions in Stoic practice as a North Star, not a destination one expects to reach, but an orienting point that determines the direction of travel. When you face a difficult decision, you ask not, "What would I in my current state do?" but "What would the sage do?" When you evaluate your emotional responses, you ask not, "Is this feeling normal?" but "Is this feeling consistent with the clarity and proportion of the sage?" The practical value of this standard, impossible as it is to meet fully, is the quality of aspiration it generates. The person who is trying to embody as completely as possible the ideal of perfect human excellence is operating at a fundamentally different level than the person who is merely trying to be a little better than they were yesterday. The Stoics had a word for the person who, while not yet a sage, is sincerely and seriously engaged in the practice of philosophy, the prokopton, literally, the one making progress. This figure, the earnest student, the one who falls short and gets back up, the one who knows how far they are from the ideal and keeps walking toward it anyway, is, in many ways, more practically inspiring than the unattainable sage. Because the prokopton is you and me and everyone who has ever seriously engaged with the practice of living well. Marcus Aurelius was a prokopton. Seneca was a prokopton, and he knew it, and said so with disarming honesty. "I am not yet the kind of man I would like to be, and I cannot yet promise to be." The practice of Stoic philosophy is not a destination but a direction, a commitment to travel, with as much consistency and honesty and courage as you can muster, in the direction of wisdom, virtue, and the unshakable inner freedom that is the goal and the reward of this tradition. The Stoic tradition, with its profound emphasis on the acceptance of impermanence and its regular practice of memento mori, might seem to argue against any concern with legacy or lasting impact. If everything passes, if even the greatest empires and the most brilliant civilizations are eventually swallowed by time, what is the point of concerning oneself with what one leaves behind? Marcus Aurelius himself raises this question and answers it with characteristic depth. The ephemerality of outcomes does not make the actions that produce them meaningless. The meaning is in the action, not in the permanence of its effects. The Stoic concern with legacy is therefore not about monuments or fame, both of which Marcus explicitly dismissed as vain, but about the quality of influence exercised within one's actual sphere of action. Did you raise children who are capable, kind, and oriented toward genuine goodness? Did you perform your work with the kind of excellence that served those who depended on it? Did you treat the people in your immediate community with justice, honesty, and genuine care? Did you leave each interaction, each relationship, each role you occupied a little better for having been there? This is the legacy that matters, not the celebrity of history's heroes, but the unremarkable, unremarked daily practice of human excellence in the particular corner of the world where your life is actually lived. One of the most powerful forms of legacy available to the Stoic practitioner is the example of a life lived in accordance with its principles, the teaching that is communicated not by words, but by consistent, visible action. Epictetus insisted that the primary vehicle of philosophical education was not lecture or argument, but the visible example of the philosopher's own life. The people who have been most transformed by Stoic philosophy are typically not those who read about it in books, though books have a role, but those who encountered another human being living it and were moved by the quality of that life to ask, "How are you doing that? What do you know that I don't?" We have traveled a long way together through this guide, from the painted porch of ancient Athens where Zeno first gathered his students, through the prison cells and imperial courts and military camps where the greatest Stoic thinkers refined their philosophy in the crucible of lived experience, to the specific practices and disciplines that make this ancient wisdom applicable to the texture of 21st century life. Let us now bring these threads together and articulate as clearly as possible what the Stoic path actually promises and what it does not. Stoicism does not promise that you will stop feeling pain. It does not promise that your life will be free from difficulty loss, betrayal, failure, or grief. It does not promise that the world will become less chaotic, that political systems will become more rational, that other human beings will become more reliable or kind, or that the random catastrophes of nature and circumstance will be directed elsewhere. The world will remain chaotic. People will continue to behave in ways that are frustrating, unjust, and sometimes devastating. Your body will age and weaken and eventually die. The things you love will be lost. What Stoicism promises is this, that none of these things, not one of them, has the power to break you unless you give them that power. The chaos of the world can reach the walls of the inner citadel. It can pound on those walls with every form of adversity and misfortune that existence can generate. But the inner citadel, built through the practices described in this guide and maintained through consistent, honest daily effort, does not fall. It cannot fall because it is made not of circumstances, but of character. Not of what happens to you, but of what you choose to do with what happens to you. This is the Stoic promise. Not comfort, not ease, not the elimination of pain, but something far more valuable than any of these, the discovery that you are equal to your life. That whatever comes, whatever has come, whatever will come, you have within you the resources to meet it, engage it, transform it, and emerge from it not diminished, but deepened. Not defeated, but educated. Not broken, but built. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, a man who faced 20 years of military crisis, devastating plague, political conspiracy, personal loss, and the daily grinding exhaustion of governing the most complex political structure his world had ever produced, returned every night to his private journal and reminded himself of the same basic truths: what is in my control, what is not, what virtue requires of me today, that this too will pass, that I am one small, brief moment in the river of time, that what matters is not how long I live, but how well, that the quality of this moment, this choice, this action, is the only thing genuinely mine. And then he got up the next morning and governed with as much wisdom and justice and courage as he could muster. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but consistently, seriously, with the full weight of his considerable mind brought to bear on the project of living well in circumstances that made it genuinely difficult. That is the practice, that is the promise, that is the path. The world will not wait for you, the chaos will not cease, the storm will not pass before you begin. You begin in the storm, with the storm, as someone who has decided that the storm does not define you, that you are more than your circumstances, deeper than your fears, larger than your losses, and more than equal to whatever this extraordinary, chaotic, brief, precious life has yet to offer. Begin today. Begin now. There is no better time.